Hello, people. Happy Easter to everybody. Hope you're having a lovely day. Sun's shining. Got a special guest today. We've got Thomas Jones on, and a few people will know that name. He's not on the camera today. Doesn't like the camera, but Thomas has a massive following, and a lot of people going to him for help. And especially, I send people to Thomas all the time, don't I, Thomas? It's probably why your phone blows up so much. But when people come to me for advice on the court system or anything like that, I send them to a couple of people. There's a couple of people that signpost, and Thomas is one of them. And that's because Thomas has done so much work behind the scenes. He doesn't ask for anything for that work that he does. He's helped, well, I'll let him tell you himself, but he's helped so many people, and just off his own back as well, studying law and forced adoption things. And he sent me a paper the other day that I'd written that was really interesting as well. But I'll let Thomas fill you in on that. So welcome, Thomas. Nice to speak to you again.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, thanks for the invite to be on the show, Sharon. I was just saying to Katie before, I'm not really like a keen sort of person when it comes to doing live chats, but this for me, it's not like a show where we're sort of all on a stage putting on an act. I'm here because I want to say how it really is. In my view, what a lot of people, the professionals involved, they seem to be very shy about saying the truth. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, brilliant. And you do a lot of good work, Thomas, as well. So we thank you for that. Thank you for everybody, really, on behalf of everybody for that. We need people like you on our side.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about thanks. I don't know why I do what I do. And I've been thinking about that the last few weeks. Why do I do what I'm doing? Is it because I'm a law graduate? Is it because I care? Is it because I've got a Christian belief that I'm a Christian? Is it something else? Is there more to it? I don't know. But you know what? I'm just here and I'm doing it. I'm not going to do it forever, but at the moment I'm doing it. So there we are.
Can you explain a little bit to the people that don't know who you are, Thomas? What is that you do and how you've been helping people?
Yeah, so I've probably been on the scene, I don't know, maybe about 4 years now. As I was just said before, I'm a law graduate, which basically means is I have an idea to understand law. I understand case law. I understand how to reason. I understand arguments. I understand how to read professional statements. So the type of person who would come to me is someone who's had social service involvement, and that could be anything from the child just being removed to there's a case going through to an interim care order hearing, which could be just when someone like PMs me because social services have already removed the child and now they have a hearing, which is the first part of what would be a full care order. So that's called the interim care order hearing. And I've had like someone phone me up at, where this person was going into a live situation with a judge. So I've got to be on the ball straight away, give them like professional advice and not sort of like showboat, not exaggerate, not boast who you are, say this, say that, say the other, but you've got to be practical.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff really.
Yeah. And you put a lot of stuff on your page, don't you? Explain, like, you put it out there for everybody to access as well, don't you?
Good question. I created this website called Legal Stuff About Lawyers, pretty much because I was helping people like on a PM basis, but it wasn't sort of helping the wider community, the people who are likely to suffer in the family court situation. And let me say one word that I would want to describe the family court system, the child protection system, the judges right up to the very top, to the Court of Appeal, UK Supreme Court, corrupt.
Yeah.
Let me say one more word for these experts who are doing diagnoses for problems that parents never had prior to going to see these so-called experts in what could be 3 or 4 hours, corrupt. Social workers who were playing the game, what I called smoke and mirrors. in a domestic violence situation. So what they would actually do is they would focus more on the victim and make the victim's case worse, and leave the one who's the dangerous person alone, because that looks after itself. A threshold. Now, threshold basically means significant harm. So I ended up doing my website just to alert more people to what's going on. But also, I've turned to writing now since I've been involved in this family court situation, and I've wrote a book called For Lisa, something like "And the Robot Professional Middle Class People, in the world, the secret world of forced adoption," something like that. I'm paraphrasing there. But I'm also writing another book, but I'm trying to find material for it, called "The Modern Holocaust: A Different Type of Genocide."
Yeah.
So, as I say, I've been doing this about 4 years. I used to do like all types of stuff online, really. I used to help with like mortgages, people with mortgage problems, the banks were trying to like take the mortgage off them. But it was the family court situation which opened my eyes to the scandal that is going. And it is a scandal. There's no other way to call it. It's a shocking scandal, and more people need to come out and talk about it and not be so frightened. You don't have to mention judges' names, but you do need to tell people what's going on.
Well, I understand that. Well, you know that Katie Jane set up this channel because of her situation. It grew from that, and you helped Katie Jane at one point as well. I understand she's mentioned in your book. She said,
yeah.
I mean, her situation. The reason she's in the background and the reason why she's not doing the show today and the next few weeks is because her ex has applied to the court to stop her speaking about her son and to change his name. So. She's obviously got that coming up. It's now, I think she's got another date for that in April. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed that from this, because as you may know, he stopped any contact with her son. So we're just all hoping that and praying that from this, she will get some contact. And that is, he's opened a can of worms there that he's trying to cut her completely out of his life. We just have to pray that it means she gets involved in his life again, because that's what she needs and that's what he needs, So,
well, Katie's always welcome to pay me anytime she wants to with her situation, and let me see what I can advise her also.
Yeah. It's always good to know there's people that can help out, isn't there, in situations like that. And that's the point of this channel, really, is in that situation, you're rabbit in headlights. You think that common sense will prevail, and that you're obviously not mentally ill, but by the time they've finished with you and they've got their psychology reports, you are mentally ill. You've got some personality disorder or something, because by the time they've wrecked you, having you jumping through hoops and false promises and lying to you, threatening you, that would affect anybody's mental health. And on top of that, they're taking your kids away from you, or they've already done it. It's going to destroy a lot of people in that situation. And then they use that against you in the court to say that you're not a good enough parent. Well, this is where people like you come in, isn't it, though, Thomas?
Yeah, you see, the thing is about the family court. Let me just be straight here, as I am in my book For Lisa. These people don't have a job if they don't have sort of parents who aren't perfect. It's as simple as, it's no longer about significant harm for the baby farmers, I call it, in one of my poems, McDonaldization, which basically means a society is run so efficiently and so without value for human beings in a way that it's more like akin to the McDonald's that you see, on every high street, where they've replaced sort of family meals with efficient food, So what I'm saying is the family court system is so efficient, it's so fast. And I use another analogy, such as a McDrive-through, because that's what it feels like to me. These family courts are going through a McDrive-through, because they're going, on the one hand, they've got the children at home. They go through this drive-through, and then you go home and the children's gone, and they think, where's the child gone? How did that happen? And that's all they need to get the case into the family court. And once they've got into the family court, then they've got time to use the creative minds. And trust me, they are creative. There's one case that I'm working on currently. Got to be careful what I say here, but
Yeah.
it's a discharge hearing, and this judge is just letting this local authority get away with absolute murder, in terms of a child being harmed. Got to be careful what I'm saying, but the child is being harmed. I can't mention what the harm is, but the child is having a tough time in foster care, and the local authority are saying that the child can consent to non-disclosure of the harm because it's in the child's best interest, put it that way. So I'm trying my best to do something about that. But these people are frightened of the public finding out what goes on, so we've got to be careful. So the families I'm helping can get put in prison if what I say gets out and someone reports it back to social services.
People think that that's like, how can they put you into prison for talking about your kids or talking about your case? It happens. Some dad got put in prison for waving at his child across the street. I mean, can you imagine if, for the child's point of view, if the father hadn't waved at the child, how the child would have felt? Like, my dad's not even waved at me. You can't, you know what I mean? But he got put in prison for waving at his child because he broke whatever rule or whatever they put in place. But I spoke to a woman the other day, and she's been dealing with them over 10 years, and the oldest child is 16, and she keeps running away and going to her mum's. Anyway, she'd ran away this day, and she was staying somewhere, whatever town it was, and she was in touch with the social worker, and she said, if I can go to my mum's for some food and a bath and a sleep, you can come get me from there. And they wouldn't allow it, so she was missing for another 3 days at some random house, just because they didn't want to give her own way. They didn't want to bow down to the child, what the child wanted. Well, she's 16. She just wants to be home with her mum, and that's all, but they won't allow it. And they're on a plan for getting her home with mum, but yet they're putting restrictions like that in place just to be bloody minded, really, because there's no other reason for it. I mean, why wouldn't you let the kid go home and have a meal with her mum? I'm just reading that comment there. I need to know how a MAPA office can approve a convicted sex offender to go and live with his partner and her 2 kids. It doesn't make sense. There's no sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because you get people who are accused of potentially risking the, causing harm to the child in the future, having kids removed when they've not done anything, and then those that have got convictions allowed to stay with the kids. It's crazy.
I mean, the situation, we'll touch on that situation you're talking about in a second. I just want to mention what you mentioned before, and that's about going to prison. It's called contempt. So basically, the judges have got these ancient powers, and I mean ancient powers. Their powers go back hundreds of years, and this is why they get allowed to do what they do. They have immunity. No one can touch them. They are untouchable. They can offer to recuse themselves, which basically means step down from the case. And the situation I was talking about before, a judge has offered to step down from that case. It's called bias, apparent or actual bias. And there was a case called Lord Porter in something McGill or something like that. It's called. But anyway, if a judge is seemingly biased with apparent or actual bias, they're supposed to step down. But in terms of prison contempt, this country in particular has got a problem with it. And Dr. Glynn, she did some work. Sorry, Dr. Glynn. She did some work for the European Parliament. Now, she is Cambridge educated, and she basically said there are 96% of parents who do not consent to adoption. So in other words, forced adoption. And this was done in 2015. This same person, Dr. Glynn, also said that the UK has got a problem with putting parents in the family court situation into prison for contempt. Now, you mentioned before about that child who's 16. She's called Gillick competent, so she's got a legal right to have a say in that.
They won't let her speak, though. They won't. They stop these children speaking, don't they? They stop them speaking about the abuse that they're getting in the care system. They stop them all the time. Over the age of 10, she should have had a say, really. But then what they're doing, because she's got younger children that she wants to get home, they're holding her to ransom, you see.
Sharon, just ask her to PM me and let me see what I can do.
Yeah, I already have, mate.
Really?
I only spoke to her last week.
Don't mention names on air, but
No.
when we get off air here, just remind me.
Yeah, well, I think it was only last week I spoke to her. She gave me a ring. I spoke to her quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But people just ring me now and again and just for a bit of advice or whatever. But I have to direct them to you because I'm not legally trained.
I am no expert, right? We're all learning on the job. I'm only a law graduate, but I've learned so much, and I learn stuff every single day. You'd be surprised what you can learn every day. And that's the thing, you've got to be humble. You've got to have humility. You don't know all the answers. When you think like that, you can help people. When you start thinking of everything is when you can't.
No, I've got a memory like a fish as well. So, I can, I understand how things work. I just don't remember details so much. Do you get what I mean? I can't remember everything, but it's like I've been trying to put a report together for Anne-Marie Waters. She was on the other week, and her party started to look at forced adoption and things. So we had her on the show, and we kind of explained the situation to her. So she's asked us to put this report together. Well, I'm doing my best, but it's just when you're doing that research, you go back to 2000 when Tony Blair decided that, Tony Blair's situation, his personal experience of it is his grandfather ran away to the circus or something and left his father with a foster placement, I believe. So he decided that kids were sitting in waiting to be adopted for too long. I think it was about 16 months on average. So he wanted that reducing, which is where all of this white paper came from that led to the 2002 paper, and then again the standards that they set. I was looking at, there's 29 standards, and they've updated it. I think it's 2014. I think they updated it again. So Cameron had a lot to do with it off the back of that. But this is where the Ofsted then they have targets of how many kids that they get put in adopted. Well, it's easier to adopt a baby. It's easier to put your order in for a baby if they've got plans to take somebody's baby, from them at birth, because they've been working on building a case since they found out the poor girl's pregnant. Phoning people up, we've got a baby on the way, for these adoptive parents. Nothing against adoptive parents. There's a lot of people out there do a lot of good stuff for kids and that, but they've corrupted the system off the back of what Tony Blair was saying about kids being in the care system too long. But what they've failed to do right along the board is invest in the actual family. When you read through their standards and their, what they claim, the family comes first. Well, the family doesn't come first. Your birth family doesn't come first, for sure. Them creating these fake families comes first for them, because they make shitloads of money. And I know you've done papers on that as well, Thomas, about they wouldn't be in jobs if they didn't keep churning these kids through the system. And when I was looking at the data for the last, I think it was 10 years, you can see how many per 10,000 children. There's how many care orders they've put into the court, how many orders went into the court, applications. And I started highlighting the towns that were over 20 applications per 10,000. And I noticed all of the northeast towns were high numbers. Everywhere around here were either, I think the lowest one was 19, the highest one was 40 something. The rest on average was kind of between 7 and 10 in a lot of areas. But the North Lincolnshire, places in Liverpool, Manchester, and all around the north, Hartlepool, Sunderland, Stockton, everywhere, high numbers of applications to the court. Now, it could be to do with the cultures or the I don't know, the ethnicities in these areas, but it's just, I get so many people around here.
Sharon, can I say something? What I think going on, I don't know if people are into conspiracy theory and stuff like that. I'm talking about fact here. About 100 years ago, there was a group formed called eugenics. Now, eugenics basically means as people, the elite, who were looking for an excuse to treat people who were lower than them like animals, basically. That's the only way I can put it. Now, eugenic, it comes from the Greek word EU, which means good or noble, and genic means like you're describing like the birth matter, like genes type thing. So they're saying you were born stupid or you were born imperfect. So these eugenics started coming up with these problem families. Now, these problem families were basically up north, and I think the former Prime Minister of England said people from Scotland and people from Liverpool are vermin. So he was equating people up north to rats, basically.
And we're not supposed to breed.
No. So all this stuff about, you know, the high levels of children going into care from like up north area is probably no coincidence. As I say in my new work that I'm writing, which is controversial, but you know me, I am controversial. It's called A Global Takeover, Satanists Learning to Enslave. And that is a sarcastic title, but I'm making a point because I do believe it's really going on. And I do believe that there is a global takeover. No, I don't believe in all the lizard people. I'm just telling you the facts, what I'm seeing. You know, I'm a Christian, fair enough. That's not the point. So I present the case for a global takeover in my work, you know, on my website. But getting back to your point, no, there is something to it. Now, I think it's apparently the numbers that go into care is about 13,000 a year before this COVID-19 farce took over. If they really cared about people, all this garbage wouldn't be going to the family court. So that's how we know they're all good actors. You know, this is why you'd have all these people banging on the bins and thanking the NHS and this, that, the other, you know, thanking the lorry drivers. The narrative just keeps on changing all the time. You know, this is why they were saying that we didn't have to wear a mask, then we do have to wear a mask, and we've got to wash the hands, got to wash the food, open the windows, let the particles out. You know, it's just psychological propaganda, in my opinion. People are really dying. Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, there's something going on behind the scenes. Definitely. But in terms of the foster care, in terms of the adoption, they've had a history going back 100 years. Is that another coincidence?
Yeah.
I think it was 100 years ago that they first made adoptions legal. In other words, adoptions had to be registered, and that was in 1925. But at the same time, you've got all these eugenics. One second, you've got all these eugenics saying, you know, well, people are born a burden to society. Let's put them in institutions. You know, let's put them in workhouses. You know, so all this stuff of up north, you'll see on the humour, on the media, the liberal media, they're always saying, who wants to live up north? It's grim up north. So this is all to do with psychology. You know, is that a coincidence? No, it's not. So yeah, Tony Blair, you mentioned him before. What do we know about Tony Blair? Well, he was educated in one of the best universities, Gordonstown, whatever you call it, you know, in Scotland. You know, he's not proper Labour. He's like the new Labour, like the nouveau Labour. You know, he's not like the proper Labour, like the bread and the butter type of Labour. He's like the Tory Labour. That's why they call them New Labour. Yeah. So what he says, right, he's trying to appeal to the Tories, and that's how he got in his landslide, because he convinced all them to come over to the other side. He doesn't give a crap about working class kids. He's just social engineering. So he was going to use anything. This is this Tony Blair, by the way, who made war on Iraq by saying that that Saddam Hussein, which is the leader of Iraq, who was actually killed on live TV at The Hague because apparently he was a dangerous tyrant. That was about oil. But anyway, what Tony Blair said, that Saddam Hussein has got the capability to make weapons of mass destruction in 24 hours. He didn't at all. It was just a narrative for the global forces to get into Iraq to create a new type of world order.
And also, I think at the time, wasn't the demonstration against going to war one of the biggest
strong in UK alone in London? About 1 million strong who were against it. But in America, they've got a different narrative. There are, love your president. Your presidents are great for you. You wave to your flag. So they've got a different narrative. They've got like God's leading America type thing. So this is what it's all about. But when you look back, if you were like an alien and you were to come down to planet Earth and you were to look and you didn't have all this brainwashing from a young age and you're looking at what's going on, you're thinking there's a takeover coming here. There's a takeover coming here. First of all, you've got banks and they're getting controlled because the government's given them power to control their money. So they're going to be controlled. But who's controlling the big banks? And you've got like super groups like IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank. Where did these people come from? What are they doing? Oh, they're basically lining countries up like the bloody dominoes and knocking some down, propping some up. So there's a massive plan going on, but they're using all these sort of like official titles, but they're all fronts. Because there was like some guy, I'm going to butcher his name here, I think his name's Adam Warshapt or something like that.
Yeah,
and he was basically elite. And he was saying, look, we need to use fronts because these people are getting clever. These sheep are getting clever. So you start using fronts and that way you can get away with all types of evil and no one's going to question you because they're not that bright.
Well, this is why, I mean, they've privatised since Blair. They've privatised everything, haven't they? I mean, when you look at children's services, that's tendered out to a limited company. When you challenge them on their children's services, if you went to the head of the council and challenged them on their children's services, and I know somebody's done this in Sunderland, their response that they got was, well, they're not part of the council. They're a separate company. They just got the contract, but they've got the contract because they went into special measures because their Ofsted was so bad for children's services. 4 years later, they're just as bad, but nobody's taking responsibility. Nobody's. If that's a private company, why have they not been sacked? Why have they not tended to a different company that's going to do a better job? If they've in 4 years shown there's no improvement, and in fact there's more and more complaints going in, there's more families destroyed because not at any point do they put in any support with these families where they go, well, this, you've had it as in forced adoption. When they decide they're taking your child at birth, they build a case. You've either been in the care system, you've been on drugs, you've been involved in domestic abuse, whatever they want to use against you, your family's got a bad reputation, whatever it is. Not at any point do they say, right, you've had these struggles, you've had this problem, let's come in and give you some support, let's come in and give you some education, area that you're lacking, and some skills and some life skills or whatever you're lacking.
Being unrealistic, it costs too much money.
But I've worked in the council, I know how much money they waste. I know how much money they waste. They bought in parenting programs, right? They bought in so that every staff family worker could get trained on delivering a parenting program, but there were different parenting programs. They spent an absolute fortune. That money that they've spent putting all these staff on a parenting course to run a parenting group that they never run. They ran for about 6 months and then it was gone. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. And I'm sitting there thinking, this money could be invested in a family. That child, just for each worker in this room sat around doing this training, like Incredible Years, was one of them. And they have to buy all it, and then you end up with this big folder, all this shit that never gets used, and because you just haven't got the time in the day. And they don't want you to invest that much time and effort into parents anyway. So it's just a big front, like you were saying. It's just a big show. It's just let's buy this in, let's waste all this taxpayers' money when all of these families, there's kids starving. I mean, I think it was in 2000 they'd said that they were going to end child poverty by 2020. Well, hello, whatever they say they're going to do the opposite. Flip it over and you'll find out what they're actually going to do, because it'll be the opposite of what they're saying they're going to do. Terrible.
See, using like private companies and stuff like that because they've got more power, they've got more freedom. Because when it comes to like public sort of functions, like the government running things, stuff like that, it creates what you call a statutory duty, and people can get sued. So what they want to do is let the companies run it themselves, but it's not just any company. They pick and choose who they want. In the last 30 years, put it this way, the state as we know it, which is all the local authorities, all public authorities has been reduced in the last 30 years. And I think that research was about 10 years ago, so probably 40 years now. So they're basically trying to get rid of the state as we know it and exchange it with like private companies. But I call it made in Torydom, because basically what they're actually doing is the Tories are choosing their best mates, who are millionaires, and they're running these companies, and they don't give a crap, as long as they can use stats to show some type of improvements. But the things that are negative, they won't focus on them. They just, they have like a soundbite. And so if there's like an investigation and stuff like that, it's not going to go any further. All they'll do, if a company is found out to be bad, all they'll do is, okay, put that company to the side, let's get a new one in. And that's all they're doing. Do you know, we talked about parents before. Do you know what they're doing now? And this is what I know for a fact. They're doing parent courses. And if you can show that you can parent, that you can do an online course, you can have your child back. Honestly,
but I know that these parents
are free. I'm actually telling parents now to do these courses. Is that bad?
Yeah. That's the hoops they have you jumping through. It's keeping people in a job, isn't it? I mean, the most success I had with families, and I worked with hundreds of families, the most success I had with families was when I went to their house. I came to meetings with them at school. We sat around and spoke about the child's at the centre. I went to the house. I observed the family dynamics. I got involved in what their family values were, because every family is different and they've got a right to have a family life that they choose, as long as it's not harmful to the children. And so when you work with a parent on a personal level like that and work it around their circumstances, they can improve massively. They just need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of, and then I only ended up doing that because I educated myself on it, because of what I was lacking when I had kids. So it's just passing that knowledge on. But the benefit from it, just having a little bit of understanding of a child's behaviour, understanding that it's all the behaviour is a way of communicating with you. And once you learn to understand the way that your child's communicating with you, it makes the job a little bit easier, because you can get one step ahead of them. But these are skills that I don't know that they're still putting workers out there to do this sort of thing, because when they restructured the system, they took all the education welfare officers, the parent support advisors, and the childcare workers, which was kind of 3 different age groups and different ways of working. And then we all had to apply for the one job, which was the I can't even remember what it was by then, but to do with parenting. We all had to apply for those jobs, and where the government say we're going to make sure that these families have one worker, one point of contact to make their life easier, so that they know who they can go to. Bullshit. They just narrowed down the workforce. They put people in there that weren't skilled in those areas to cover everything. So if you had 6 children in your family, all different ages, all different problems, that one person's supposed to know how to fix or help you fix that range of problems, instead of having, we've got an education problem, let's go to the education welfare officer.
Sharon, but ask the question, why?
Because they don't want to help families, they just want you to fail.
No, you're looking at a qualitative answer. It comes down to money. It's cheaper to use one person instead of several.
But then when you look at how much it costs in the care system, the investment that is too expensive to invest in the family.
That's their baby. They've had their baby for hundreds of years, well, at least 100 years anyway. They don't want to, take their baby away. That baby props the economy up. We've got an economy prior to COVID-19 anyway of about 2 trillion, which is like 2 followed by 12 zeros, right? Now, welfare is like a very, very small proportion of that. But if you take out, I've never worked out the maths or the economy behind foster care, adoption, blah, blah, blah. But I tell you what, that would be a good lump sum of money in that economy. And that is keeping that economy up. So we've had that for 100 years. Come on, let's be realistic. What about the slavery? Did they decide overnight, you know what, it's terrible that we're doing this to black people. Let's just stop making slaves out of them. No, because they found a new way to make money. That was
Yeah.
keeping the economy going. Before that, they were like selling like drugs around the world on ships and stuff, And then they like put a law in place where no one could do that anymore now. And now, they took control of the pharmaceutical companies about, 100 years ago, whatever it was. It's all a game. And this is just the game that we don't see because we weren't born then, because we can't put it all together. But there's actually a pattern to it. Now, once they get rid of this foster care, they're going to have to find something else. So they're going to have to find another group of people to exploit. But what you're saying is true. Look, most of the people who come to me, domestic violence, relationships, bit of neglect. I think I said this to you last time when I was on here. It's something really, really trivial. Missed dentist appointment, missed nursery appointment, dirty dishes in the sink, dad smokes weed, just really, really trivial stuff like that. That's how they get enforced adoption through. And the judges are just like giving out smarties. Who wants an adoption? Do you want an adoption? Do you want long-term foster care? You choose. And this is what they're doing. The local authority are keeping the judge in jobs because the local authority barrister who's representing the parents like 5 or 10 years earlier, they become the judge in 5 or 10 years later. So it's quid pro quo, favour for a favour.
Yeah. I know
honestly,
judges that have got their own solicitor. A judge up here that's got their own solicitors firm, so they're raking it in all the way around. And she's vile. She loves taking kids off of parents. When they direct you towards a solicitor, I know from when working in the team that they used a certain family, because obviously different solicitors have different skills. So when it's the family law solicitors, the social workers are using the same one. They're telling you where to go to get a family law solicitor. They're all.
Sharon, please interrupt because this is really important, and you've just sort of touched on a really, really significant point. Look, if you've got a solicitor which is very close to your local authority, sack them and find another one about 30 miles away, 40 miles away, 50 miles away, because the likelihood is that local authority is providing those the law firms with work. And what I know now, I didn't know before, the solicitors work in partnership with the barristers, so you might get a brilliant barrister but a really shit solicitor.
And the judge that I spoke to, he's retired. I said to him, are there any solicitors around this area that would actually fight the corner of the families that I'm actually working with? And he said, he named one solicitor, so she's pretty good. He says, but on a whole, they get so well paid off the council, they won't go against them. So when you've got that solicitor, they're going to just they're going to do very little for you because you're getting paid too well. The bonuses they get from the council's too great to risk, so they won't actually stand up for them. And this is why I say to parents, go find a solicitor out of town because it's less likely to be linked to that council.
Sharon, do you have proof that the solicitors are getting paid bonuses from the councils?
Well, what the judge said to me was, you get paid too well from the council because they work both sides.
So what you're trying to say is it's all legal aid, Sharon. It's all legal aid, right? Because legal aid doesn't pay that much money. However, when you've got like many cases on legal aid, it keeps them partners in a luxury lifestyle.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I know as well, you mentioned about, I think early on, you mentioned about the psychology reports and that they're not even proper psychologists a lot of the time. I know they used to use the education psychologist. Well, I know he's obviously anybody can do a psychology degree. Let's face it, you just have to have a good memory, I think. But it's when you're education psychology and you're that's why most of them, don't they, when they go into court, they kind of say, well, it's possible or potential, or they use words like that. So they can't actually say you've got something wrong with you, but they'll sort of suggest it, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I did it like my first year of psychology and I thought, I hate the subject. It's corrupt. There's something dark to it. This is where I learned about all eugenics and stuff. When I learned about all the social Darwinism, the controlling people and stuff. Psychology's got a history about 100 years in this country. It's what we call a social science because it's new. The previous sort of sciences were like the main ones, like chemistry, doctors, like proper science, medical science, whatever. But this psychology and psychiatry has only got a history of about 100 years, right? Psychology basically means the study of the psyche, the mind, how people function. But I've seen psychologist reports, which are normally you'd expect a PhD. Now, a PhD in psychology, you'd expect, I don't know, 6 years research. I've seen some that are called like forensic psychologists. And that basically means that they've probably done a 6-month course on top of their normal psychology degree. And maybe they've got a master's degree, which is like an advanced degree. But in terms of being an expert, it's trivial. It's trivial. And I'm the one who studies psychology. And I haven't got a degree in psychology per se. But I know enough to understand you're not really qualified, mate, to state what you're putting in a report. But listen to this.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, they don't go by medical evidence. They don't need medical evidence. They do what we call a statement, what I would call a hearsay statement or a circumstantial statement, based on what the parent is saying in that one-day assessment. Whether I say 1 day, it could be 3 hours, it could be 2 hours. And these people have no qualifications. They also have law degrees, believe it or not. I say LLB because they're my qualifications. LLB. Why has a psychologist got LLB? Because they're being trained how to be like a fucking Spanish Inquisition, excuse my French.
Yeah.
And these kids who go before them, and they are kids sometimes, I call them iPhone families. Do you know why? Because all they have is an internet phone. They have an internet phone, they don't have a computer, they don't have a scanner, and they're expected to defeat what is essentially, I've seen up to 4,000 page called bundles, family called bundle. Now a bundle just basically means is all your papers, all your files on your case in a big massive bundle. And that could be up to 4,000 pages, could be more, but usually it's about 1,000 pages. They're supposed to defeat this. These judges don't have time to read these fucking bundles. They just don't. But yet, and the parents don't even give them. They don't have a chance to speak to a judge. They don't have a chance to speak to a judge. Everybody listening to me, you make sure you speak to that judge before they make the interim care order. Because guess what? Your baby's going for adoption. Your baby's going long-term foster care. Your baby's going to special guardianship with middle-class parents, or they're going with families who you don't get on with, or they're going with, say, like if you're a domestic abuse mum, they're going to go to your partner who was coerced you, who's abused you. They're going to go to their mum and dad, not yours. That's how it goes. So these iPhone families, they're not educated. So it's like basically arguing with a child in a court. It's so easy for them. It's like money for old rope, as they would say. It's absolutely corrupt. Now, these psychologists, some of them don't have to give evidence. It's enough for the report to go in. But if they get a positive report, because they can get another independent expert, that might override this one. But you know what? It's not all doom and gloom, because it looks like I may have won a revoke case. And normally, these don't normally win. Now, this is based on a statement alone. This is based on my statement, because guess what? I've evolved. I've got better. I've improved. I'm not like one of these robots who just does the same thing day in, day out. I never, oh, come on. Hopefully this might work. Hopefully it might work. No. I was trying appeals. They don't work. I was appealing to the top judges for these parents. They do not work. You've got these judges at the very top who are playing the same game that the local authority are. It's almost like they're playing like games. Whatever I say for the merits, they twist that back around why they're going to refuse the appeal.
Gaslighting, narcissists at the top level.
Yeah. It's all controlled. It's like this pyramid, this all-seeing eye. This is not a coincidence.
No. And then there's a lot as well, there's a lot to do with the Freemasons in that. I know I shouldn't mention certain things, but, I know people that have gone into court and they've shown them a little sign. So let judge know that they're part of their Freemason, you know what I mean? To let them know they're part of the group. And in order to get off things, and that's probably why.
Sharon, explain to people what Freemason is. Explain to them properly.
The Freemasons, it's like a elitist group, isn't it? Well, there's so many different levels, though. That's the thing with that Adam Weishaupt that you mentioned earlier was responsible for a lot of what they call the Illuminati. And so they belong to this group that at the lower levels, you believe you're just a charitable organization doing good for your community. But you're not allowed to, it's like what goes on in Fight Club stays in Fight Club. I know we're not supposed to talk about anything, but I've known people that have been in the Freemasons and left the Freemasons because they've lost their business or whatever, because they target like local businessmen and things and get them involved. And then, you know, if there's a contract comes up for a builder that's in the Freemason, he'll get the contract because he's part of their elite group, or, you know, it's favors for friends, and they're all putting in the pot, but they're all taking out. But when you have to kind of show how narcissistic or how what's the best word, perverse, I think, to get up to the higher realms. But it's fed down that pyramid, and they tell you on a need to know basis as you go up the ranks. They tell you more, but the story changes even then. They've lied to you at the bottom levels. But yeah, so it's favors for friends, and they're all part of this elite group, aren't they, that they call the Freemasons. There's a big Masonic hall in Sunderland, which is probably why they're getting away with so much child snatching there, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like with Blair, with his school in Scotland. I mean, they're big, massive Freemasons, sort of.
Sure. Can I just touch upon one thing? Do you know, in my, it will be a book eventually, but in my global takeover, you know, Satanist learning to enslave, guess what? Do you know Bin Laden, that guy, he was the leader of Al Qaeda. He is a terrorist, don't get me wrong, he is. But ever guess what he found in his...
He was in the CIA, wasn't he?
Well, he was basically... No, that's not actually... I'm trying to be accurate here because I don't want to exaggerate stuff. What it was, as a put in my book also, they were basically trained by the CIA to fight, because he's from Afghanistan, right? So they were trained to fight the Russians, and they formed a group called Al Qaeda. But they were trained by the CIA to use like these sort of guerrilla warfare, you know. And then they were allowed, all his groups, all his friends were allowed back in America, and this is why the Twin Towers went down. But never mind. So Bin Laden, in his compound, you know, when the special forces or whatever, they actually broke into his home when they were looking for evidence against him. They found Illuminati bloodlines in his compound. And where did I find this information? From the CIA website.
They keep it in the family. All these people, they're all related by blood somewhere down the line. And there's good guys and bad guys in that mix that are all still in that bloodline. You know, I think they refer to them as white hats and black hats in America. But, you know, I mean, Trump, he's considered a good guy, and he's part of the bloodline families as well. When you trace back to is it 13 royal families or something that it's created from? But it is about world dominance, a whole thing. I mean, when you hear about 100 years, I remember reading a book that was written about social work, and it was the turn of the kind of, not this century, the last century, when there was a lot of poverty and famine and things, and the local women were helping each other out. They were providing a voluntary service to these other parents and children that weren't doing so well, and that then get taken over by what they call social workers, and then it became part of that establishment, really. So they stopped, and this is where we need to get back to, I think, Thomas, is our local communities, and there's a group in the northeast called the Lionesses. I interviewed last week. They're meeting up in parks and at beaches, and you know, they're organising a no mask shopping trip. So there's a load of them going with no masks on and things. All these women coming together. So this is where, and they've got a little community started where, if like one of them's got chickens, so they buy their eggs off her, or one of them's growing organic veg, so they buy the veg off her, and another one makes things, and so they work in the building that community that we need, I think, all over this, where we take it out of their hands, we stop using the authorities, we turn our backs on them, and we create these the needs that we have, that we go to them for. I mean, really, this lockdown should have shown people that we don't need the middleman. One example, right? A woman was she was paying for care. I don't know if it was for her parents or just somebody in the family disabled. They were paying for care anyway, and they discovered that if they went to the company instead of getting it provided through the council, it was half the price. So the council is basically middlemen. They're just whacking a load of money on to take off the top. So when we start getting back to employing, you know, if a company said, right, we'll provide your refuse collection, then you pay us. People would rather do that than pay the council tax. They would rather, I think, people would rather pay that company to provide that service than pay the council who claim to provide the services, but they don't. They tender it out, and it costs us twice as much. So they're middlemen. That's all. They're just estate agents, or, you know, they're just middlemen. That's it. And they're all narcissists, as far as I can see, because they employ them on that basis now, I think.
See, Sharon, what's going to happen is, and I've put this, I've sort of hinted at it, because I'm very careful when I'm trying to explain a concept to the public, to the people, because I don't want to be branded this conspiracy theory nutter. I never used to really think like that. Well, I did.
We're conspiracy analysts, Thomas. Conspiracy analysts, because most of it's true.
I know that, but thing is, I don't want to sort of put the two in the same basket. You know, foster care is one thing, adoption is another, special guardianship is another, but it's entirely different to you know, the global picture. You know, but they are both important. But what you're talking about now, right? As I say before, I'm a Christian, and this is what I believe, and I put the case in my book. Well, what will be my book? What's on my webpage? The Global Takeover. You know, Satanists learning to enslave. I believe that Jesus is going to come back. It doesn't matter what anyone else believes. I don't believe it. I know. I'm convinced of it. Right. So we're going to get these Satanists, and they're going to come out within the next, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 years. Right. Because they've had like hundreds of years on us, you know, and I believed they're watching some type of live scroll, and they can see pictures, so they know what's happening all the time, you know, and they know if they're watching one thing and the public start doing another, okay, they'll focus on a different picture. And this is what they do. They keep on using different strategies. Like Labour were trying to get through the ID card in about 2006, and the public refused it. So guess what? They go a different route.
Yeah.
And then you start focusing on biometrics.
I always wondered. I knew that they would try to bring communism in, right? Worldwide. Yeah. And I just thought, right, to get communism, you've got to get rid of the middle class. Yeah. And I knew that being on the street, fighting against forced adoption and all rapes and whatever else, immigration, whatever else, terrorism, the middle class happily going along their business, making the money, ignoring everything else because their world's not affected by that.
They're not affected, right. And that is the material point. They are not affected, and that's why sometimes I look at middle class like robots. I use that for a reason, because they're out of touch. They're not affected by the poverty. They're not affected by the children being stolen. They're not affected by just really, really terrible lifestyles.
So what happened with this pandemic? It was an answer to my prayers, in a sense. I know it's been shit for a lot of people, but I can't help but see the benefits of it. I can't help but see the positives of it, because really, I was saying we need to shut this country down. We need to bring it to a standstill so that all of these systems break down and people realise that it's just a corrupt system that's not doing any good for anybody, and we need to get rid of it. And when you bring it to a standstill, people will realise that it's not necessary. It's unnecessary. All these civil servants would be out of a job if people actually woke up. But I'm thinking, well, how are they going to get rid of the middle class? If I know they won't support us on the streets because it wasn't affecting them. So here comes the pandemic. Well, small businesses, you've got to shut. This is how they bring in the communism, because they get rid of the middle class. How they do that? They close your businesses down with a fake thing, so that you've got no choice. You go out of business, and then we're at a level. Then everybody's on universal credits. Universal credits is already in there, ready and waiting for everybody to have to claim universal credit. Being furloughed. That's what you are. You've been given a little bit of a bridge from having your own business.
Where's the money coming from?
Eh?
Where's this money coming from?
Exactly. So
It's going to happen if they keep on like bailing companies out. The banks are going to foreclose on all the properties, all cars, anything with a value. They did it back in 2008. They were like, people were missing one payment mortgage, they were gone. That was it. They didn't get a second chance. I know, because I studied mortgage law when I was doing my law degree. They have got an amazing power. And if we've only got like an economy, right? It's propped up with printing money. It's propped up with different things, different interests in different companies, but it's fragile. When you've got a war in Iraq and stuff like that, or a Middle East country, it affects our oil. Therefore, our oil will go up in price. So we don't have any money. You don't have money. I've said this in my paper too. If you get your notes out your pocket now, your £5 note, and you look at it, it says I owe you. That's not real money. It's not real money. There's nothing to back it up. So what? Go on.
This is where the digital currency comes in, doesn't it? Because they need a replacement. They knew that it was only going to last, every financial system is only set to last, is it 50 years or something, and then it's going to collapse. So they knew they needed an alternative. Well, here comes digital currency, Bitcoin and everything else. Well, I'm still hoping that we're going to get the gold-backed currency, which is, I think, as well, why they were trying to encourage everybody to sell the gold. Gold was going at such a good price. All these little shops that buy your gold off you.
Sharon, do you know what it says about gold in the Bible? They'll be throwing gold and precious gems into the streets.
Because they won't be worth anything.
Have no value. See, gold has got like a mysterious value because it's rare. Do you know where gold comes from?
They mine it, don't they?
Yeah, but where does it come from?
Well, it's I don't know really.
Stars. So basically, you've got a star, right? They call it like a supernova. So you've got like a large star, and it explodes. It creates this impossible heat, and this creates all types of precious gems, all types of gold, and everything else. And then the gold eventually finds its way down to, because we're spinning around this sun like 180,000 kilometers an hour, whatever it is. Okay. And that's how we get gravity, by the way. But the thing is, everything, the stars all around it all falls down onto the planet. So this is how we get gold, right? This is how we get gold in the ground, because over the thousands of years or whatever, it forms into the ground. So that's how we get gold. So gold is rare, right? But if the Bible's telling us that we're going to be throwing things into the street, you were spot on. It's going to have no value for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but it's going to have no value.
It's like when they said this toilet rolls were all getting bought up.
Did you see them all?
For me,
that's called psychology.
Yeah, because straight away for me, I was like, well, that doesn't even make sense. The only thing that I could make sense out of it was in Venezuela. There was a big headline about the toilet paper being worth more than the money, more than gold in Venezuela, because of what they'd done with the communism. And so for me, when they started the shortage of toilet rolls, all they were saying was, with the symbology and the little joke that they have on us, is you're going the same way as Venezuela. We're bringing in communism and this is it. And that's what I got from the toilet roll situation.
I mean, I think that's a complex answer, and I think the average person is not that intelligent to think that way. I just think they just thought, we don't know what's going to be left in the stores, because the government was saying there are going to be some problems with supplies.
Yeah, but they control the supplies. They can make it look like there's a shortage.
Of course
all they have to do is have a few people. You put it all over the media. They control the media. They control the supply to the supermarkets. They make you feel that there's a lack, and that's how they keep everybody. They make you feel, you better get your vaccination before it runs out. We've only got so many. Shove it up your ass. Do you know what I mean? You can't fool me with that. And this is the thing, right? I've looked at this stuff on such a deep level for so long that I see whenever I don't know whether you would consider me clairsentient or whatever, but I see exactly through everything they put out, the symbology of everything. I see. Sometimes it's just my twisted mind, I guess, but I see the dark side of it every time. I see what they try to say to. Like you say, most people wouldn't even get that connection because they haven't studied what the things that I've looked at or whatever. But a lot of people that are awake would see that connection but then I just pick up things along the way, and then it makes sense. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? It's like you put the pieces together. But there's been an assault on. It's like they have 100-year plan, and this is the end of the plan coming to fruition. But like you say, there's a second coming of the Lord in that sense. Even the Suez Canal, right? The Suez Canal, where that Evergreen container ship was stuck, right? Apparently Putin had a hand in that. But where that was stuck, I saw a woman explaining, she's only woke up this last year because of all this stuff as well, but she's done a lot of research on the astrology of things, right? And where the sun was, where the planets were, and everything. And it's like where you've got your astrology symbols, it's like giving birth to the sun at that point in time, and also that part of the Suez Canal, it's in question, but they believe that was where Moses parted the sea, and it's symbolic with the lining up of the planets and the stars and everything else, and it's all symbology. So that's worth looking into if anybody's interested in that. Somebody sent me an interview the other day with this woman on it. I can't remember her name though, unfortunately. Terrible fish brain. But
you are joking. Do you know the way you call yourself fish brain? I'm severely dyslexic and I have problems. I've had to keep on taking notes. You don't have a fish brain. Stop being harsh on yourself. It's what they call. I did my it's like a chart. It's based on the Kundalini, is it, or something? Anyway, I was considered empty head, which means things come into my head, but they don't stay there. So if I'm on a subject, things can come into my head and I can talk about them. But if you ask me a question, exams, I'm terrible. Can't do exams and things. But yeah, Sharon,
that's why the skills.
They told me I'm thick in school. They told me I would never get a good job. Mind you, they're probably all right because I've been on the sick for years. But they didn't also tell me I was going to get a law degree at the same time. But I mean, because we are programmed from a young age to listen to the authorities, listen to what they say about you, and you don't know enough at that time to challenge that until you leave school and you get out of that sort of what I would call that propaganda machine. That propaganda machine is going to determine whether you're going to get a good job, or you're going to be flipping burgers at McDonald's. And I'm not having a go at people who flip burgers at McDonald's. We do what we do to feed our families. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they decide who they want to be successful and who they don't. So what they do, they have these education systems like Eton College, which is where the Prime Minister goes, and they have all these private schools, and they are extremely expensive to go. So guess what? The poor people can't go. So what they do is they create grammar schools. But you can get like kids on a council estate who go to a grammar school, pass this shitty little exam, and then they're converted into a Tory for life. So they have all these. And you know what?
In Ripon, they had the grammar school over the road from the comp, which meant there was a natural divide between them and us, if you like, from the comp and not that I went to Ripon School. I worked there, I didn't go there. But yeah, just having the schools opposite each other, it's like, you know, just little things like that. Everything is their agenda, everything. If you want to see what's going on, you've got to look at what their agenda is. You've got to follow the money, and you've got to realise that everything has been manipulated. Everything that you've been taught, you've got to forget and go look for yourself and use your intuition to guide you, because that's how I questioned even from a child. It's like going to school. I thought, what is bollocks this? How is this going to help me in my future? And so I opted not to go. I skived off school an awful lot, but you didn't have kiddie catchers so bad then, so many years ago. But I think that gave me a big advantage. My mum, being a twin, I got a twin brother, so my mum didn't think we needed to really go to school till we were 5. We didn't go to nursery out like that. She just waited till we could walk ourselves to school, basically. And I think that benefited me as well, that I didn't get put into that system. Although we're talking about the 70s, it was slightly different then, but they have had a 100-year plan. So you've got to take that into consideration, because as well, 2015, I think it was.
You're joking, aren't you? They've got about a 500-year plan. Wouldn't surprise me if it's 2,000 years. That's how brilliant it is if you're looking from their point of view tactically.
Yeah. But I think they cut it up into they have like a plan of their lifetime, don't they? But they don't even care whether they're not even going to be alive to see it, because they believe that they'll be reincarnated somewhere down the family chain, because that's where all the inbreeding came from, wasn't it? To keep it all in the family, swapping around different like between those families to keep the money in within those families as well, and the power.
Or the eugenic, the idea that you were born that way, so therefore they wanted to create the bloodlines, even if it was cousins, even if it was closer than that, in secret. It wouldn't surprise me if many like brothers and sisters, in these groups. It just wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, we don't really want to talk about the Satanists, but they are real, and it is going on. But I'm very careful what I say about that. I wouldn't even mention it in the paper, because I want to create an opportunity at another time to write my own way about it. I'm going to put the case for the Satanists being real. That's how I'm going to put it. So I don't really want to mention it, because I don't want people sort of saying, oh, your conspiracy theory, this, that, the other. No, I'll present the case, and if you want to believe it, you believe it, and if you don't, you don't.
Well, before people started to travel across the seas to other countries, their religions, they had different religions and things, and I think in a lot of countries they believed that Satan was the real God, the Prince of Light, or the true God and things like that. And I think when you look at a lot of these religions, they're based on satanic stuff. I don't think the way they treat the women and the children and things for a start, and the way they make animals suffer, it's satanic, isn't it? It's like it's like a blood offering. It's always a blood offering. The mutilating and harming and psychologically damaging, and that's their life.
Sharon, why a blood sacrifice? Why?
Well, they sacrifice to Baal, don't they? There's a long history of sacrifices to Baal.
Why a blood sacrifice?
I don't really know the meaning of the blood sacrifice.
It goes back to the Bible, because they used to sacrifice animals in the Old Testament, for people's sin. But then Jesus...
well, they did it with the blood on the doors, didn't they, to protect. Was that Moses? They put the lamb's blood on the doors so they'd know not to give them the plague, wasn't it?
Yeah. Basically, the blood was protecting them from like the plagues, which had been sent around. But basically, it comes about the blood because there's life in blood for whatever reason. It's like you read the Bible. It was like the blood, but like when a person's being murdered in the Old Testament, it says in the Bible, and the blood screamed out. So the blood can talk. The blood is alive. So for whatever reason, Satanists are obsessed with blood because it gives them power. For whatever reason, apparently gives them power. But anyway, Jesus in the New Testament, he actually said that wasn't working because people were still committing sin. So Jesus said, look, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and he who follows me, I will give eternal life. And he became the ultimate blood sacrifice. So these Satanists now, look, you've had child sacrifice for thousands and thousands of years. It goes back millennia, ancient times. Why the heck wouldn't they be doing it now?
Yeah.
Come on. Let's just wake up.
Yeah. Well, you just have to look now that people are more aware of adrenochrome, because when you talked a few years, even just 2 years ago, about them drinking babies' blood, they'd go, what? You just talk, you're nuts, you know. But actually, now that they understand that adrenochrome is a thing, and that there's
I don't know about what you just said before, that adrenochrome. I think they talk about like the adrenaline maybe, and some type of, Well,
the adrenochrome is the blood source from children. They terrorize them so that it gives them more of a high when they drink it. It's like the elite's drug of choice.
How do we know this? This is hearsay. How do we know?
No, you research adrenochrome, honestly. But if you take a child's blood, if you get your blood cleansed using a child's blood, obviously that blood, your cells replenish, don't they, to a certain age, and then we start to rot, and that's when we get old.
But this part that it gets sort of blurred. Look, I've got a degree in law. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't have a PhD in medical doctor stuff. So when they start talking like medical stuff, my legal brain starts thinking, based on what? Are you a doctor?
You look at Silicon Valley, adrenochrome in Silicon Valley. They sell it in Silicon Valley. They create it in Silicon Valley. They harvest. This is why they harvest so many children. They harvest organs and everything from the children. This is why they push for late-term abortions, so they could harvest the organs of babies.
But Sharon, what I'm saying is everything you say validated with proof.
There's plenty of proof out there. There's plenty of stuff out there.
If I'm helping like a parent in court, right, I can't say X, Y, Z, whatever, unless I can validate that with evidence. So what I actually do, I actually take the case that I'm looking at. Now, I can't do it for everyone because it's extremely time consuming. So I will normally guide. But if I'm actually writing, a parent's case, which I'm not really supposed to, but who gives a shit? You got to do what you got to do. So if I'm writing a parent's case or whatever, I've got to be able to pull their case apart before I can get to my stuff. So I will normally have all the party names. In my introduction, I'll be having a bit of the background. So I will try to basically pull the local authority case apart, Kafka's Guardian case apart, and then hand it back to them. That's what I will try to do. But what I'm saying to you is, whenever you're listening to people, have evidence. Do they have that qualification? Have you seen it? And that's how I think now. My thinking has evolved now as I've been helping these family courts, because I've realised now, if I don't do what I need to do, we're not going to get anywhere. I might as well just get like one of those megaphones and just shout, on the street, because I'm not going to get anywhere. I've got to evolve. I've got to improve. I've got to be better. And I've got to keep on getting better. And that's what I'm doing. But I always come back down to evidence. Where is that key evidence? Now, even when I'm writing the global takeover, what would be a book soon, whatever, I'm always trying to balance it out now. I'm always not trying to go like one side. I'm trying to think a balance, because when you go too sort of like biased, you get caught up in your own ego. You get caught up in your own theory, but you've got to be able to break it apart so other people know how to challenge it also, and that way it gets credibility.
Yeah, there's a couple of, I was looking at the comments on there. I know that's not how they get adrenochrome, but when you're talking about the Satanists and the blood sacrifices, the reason that they torture the children before they start drinking their blood is because it gives them more of a high. The more tortured and frightened the child is. With the actual producing of the adrenochrome, obviously they're taking blood out of children, basically. I'm not saying they torture them at that point, but I haven't got all the facts on it, but I do know it's a thing. I do know that it's been proven that, they do produce adrenochrome. And they've even, in a Hollywood movie, I think it was, what they call him, he's been in loads of stuff as well. Pirates of the Caribbean guy, what they call him. He was in a film where they're actually in the film taking adrenochrome and talking about it. It's the new drug of the elite and things like that. So,
how do we know it? But that point I'm getting at, if I could look at evidence and I could look, because I'm looking at like 40, 50 page psychologist reports. I'm looking at what they're saying. I'm looking at the theories. I'm looking at the attachment syndrome, the blah, 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 the other garbage they're coming out with, psychological problems, disorders, borderline personality disorder. I'm looking at that and I can go, okay, yeah, I get why you're saying that, but I can't find it on the evidence. Hello? There's no evidence to say that. And that's why I'm helping the cases that I am. And I'm being better than what I was previously, because I'm starting to think more critical minded. So, but I've never seen anything about what you're talking about on a piece of paper to prove to me by a medical doctor that says, look, we've done all these tests. How would you support the hypothesis? You'd have to have a bloody child and take it from it to prove that it did exist, is what I'm saying.
But this is where all these children going missing. This is what they're saying about all these children going missing, especially in America, right? There's lots of different reasons that children go missing, and that's only part of it. But thousands and thousands of children go missing. They get found out, they get trafficked out, they get used as slaves. There's lots of things that, when they're taking children away from families, children go missing from the care system all the time. And I think you know, the more kids they put in care, the more access these people have got to other people's children. You know what I mean? So when it comes down to it, everything is an assault on the children, isn't it?
No, I get that. And I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't correlate with them taking some type of genetic material out of these children. I'm not saying you're wrong, right? But what I am trying to say is, I per se, Thomas, has never seen any evidence for it. That's all I'm saying. And I'm
I don't suppose you've got time to look at everything, Thomas.
No, I know I don't. But I could look like at a report, and I could go, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I can see that evidence. He's got that experience. He's done these tests. You know, he's done these samples. They've come back. We've got these results. They've had some type of, you know, comparator group to compare them to. So this all sort of how experts test a hypothesis, like the theories, because they've got something to compare it to. What I'm saying to you is, I haven't seen any type of evidence like that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be difficult too.
Thomas, changing subject. I mentioned earlier about all these standards. You know, these standards, the 29 standards. Have you looked at it? I think it might be quite interesting to look at those standards, because it lays out what qualifications these social work managers, the psychologists, and everybody else is supposed to have. Because it was just something that came up when I was writing all the stuff down yesterday. I said to my mate, it'd be interesting to get a survey out of these standards to see, actually, or even putting freedom of informations in, to see if that manager that's dealt with that case has those qualifications that they're saying that they have to be in that position. Because I'm guessing not in a lot of cases.
Well, actually, they've got to register. You've got like Social Work England, and they know what their qualifications are, so they know if they're qualified or not. So that part is legit. Now, there are some social workers who've been struck off, or they've got a bad mark against the name, and they've had to postpone registration. So we know those who are qualified and those who are not.
Yeah, but there was a specific for the adoption service. I'm guessing, knowing how they work, because I know when parents or grandparents have said to me, and the social worker that's dealt with their family that's taken their children, that they've newly qualified social workers, they've taken the children, and then within a short space of them children being removed, that newly qualified social worker is now promoted to senior social workers and things like that. There's incentives. The people say, oh, you don't get paid for taking children. Social workers don't get paid for taking children. They get incentives.
They get promotions.
Exactly. And so
a child is worth, it may have gone up now to an adoption agency, £32,000. Just one child, £32,000. Now, it's slightly less if you get two children together, but you're still talking thousands. So there's a massive incentive. And also the social workers do get bonuses. They do. I know they do. And they also get progressed in their career. But you take a social worker, what creates a bad social worker, an evil social worker? When you've gone through the system, you've got to come back down to practicalities, money, mortgages, paying landlords. So you know that they've got to be that way, or if they don't, they're going to lose the job.
Yeah.
And then they get groomed into being who they are. It's the same with, lawyers. I believe that when they first went to school, then they went to university, they came out, we're going to change the world, we're going to do great things. And they found out, shit, the world isn't like what I thought it was. I've got to do this or I don't have a job.
Well, I know for a fact, a couple of years ago, probably three years ago, a young girl I know that was, she likes money, let's say, but she was going off to do a social work degree. And the first assignment, the first shadowing assignment they go to a team, don't they, and you spend so many months with that team. The first one she got was working with the team and a social worker who was in the process of putting the paperwork together to remove somebody's child, because this woman had children removed in the past, so it was perfectly justified that they would just go straight in and build a case while she's pregnant that she wasn't going to keep this child either, because it's laziness as well a lot of the time, because if they've already got some paperwork, they can just dig out and regurgitate. They quite often do that, and some of the stuff that you see in these reports is being regurgitated from files from years back, and it doesn't even make sense anymore in the new files, but they're just lazy sometimes. And I think that so her first placement was working with a social worker on removing somebody's child at birth. And then she went for a second placement, interview for a second placement, and she had to role play taking a child at birth. So for me, social services now is just steering their social workers towards removing children. There's no, why not role play? How would you support this family if they were at risk of losing their child? What sort of things would you put in place to make sure that didn't happen? That wasn't the role play she had to do, you know.
No, you know, and you are right, because there was this report called Featherstone 2018. It says there's an adoption train that cannot be derailed. So once they decide adoption, and I know when they've decided adoption, because they have like these, you know, the paperwork it's a social worker, by the way, who takes the court, not a lawyer, a social worker. So they just put like a statement in. It's called SWET, so it's social work evidence template, and they just put information on that. And then they've also got the core form itself, which is form C for Charlie 11A. Now they've got a part, what would you like? Adoption. If they put adoption on there, you know they're going to try to get adoption. They might have to negotiate and accept special guardianship order. Now this is really important, because I'm aware now, you know, we've gone like enough 2 hours, well, an hour and a half into it, and I want to just tell people to give them some hope. So there is a way to challenge an adoption, and the first one is to revoke. Now, revoke just basically means that you're asking the judge to cancel the order, and it can be done, and lots of parents have done it. Now, to revoke, you would need evidence to prove what the psychologist has said was wrong. Like, what we could use like a parent course. Like, if they said you don't protect your child, whatever, and you're a domestic abuse victim, you could go for an online course in safeguarding. You know, if they say you can't parent, and you've actually you fail what we call PAM, so it's Parental Assessment Manual, and this is like a parent diagnostic tool. If you fail that and they say you can't parent, again, you can do a certificate online, which is fucking outrageous, excuse my French. I know I'm a Christian, but sometimes you gotta sweat. But yeah, they can take your child on the fact that you didn't answer the questions correctly. That's called PAM. So if you do like a parent course, you can defeat that argument, and it does work, because I'm just helping a parent, as I say before, hope that we might have won this revoke argument. And there was like umpteen amount of professionals. Let's just say there were less than 10, but more than 5. There was a lot of professionals. This girl is allegedly got a low IQ. She had PAMs, professionals, she had Kafka's guardian. Every bloody person you can think of was against her.
Yeah.
But yet this girl never had to give evidence, not once, in this revoke. So we might have won.
Yeah.
So there's hope. So that's called a revoke. Now you revoke at the time where your child hasn't been placed with adopters. Now, if you fail to revoke, that's okay. That's fine. You get another chance. It's called opposed adoption. Now, the opposed adoption will come up. You get like a letter from the family court to say the adopters have applied to adopt your child permanently. Now, you can put in an opposed statement. So that's your second choice. Now, to revoke, this is very important also. You use court form A52. A52, and another form called F for Freddy, P for Paul, the number 2, and that's for permission. Now on the A52, if you've got more than one child, you will fill that form out. And for the FP2, you'll just fill one of those out for the case. And you ask for a directions hearing, and case management hearing in the box, and therefore you'll get a better chance to have a proper hearing instead of just a 5-minute sort of video time with the judge as to why you're being refused. So there are things you can do. The third option, which I try to do it many times for parents, is you can appeal to London. You can appeal, and you would appeal using core form N for November 161. So N161. So there are ways to do it. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, I do know that a lot of parents get told they have to do these courses, but the courses that they're told to do, or whatever they're supposed to look for, aren't available. So a lot of times they're just trying to jump through hoops that aren't even exist.
They don't have to do their course what they want them to do. They can do what we call a freedom course, and that can be for like domestic violence. So it's called freedom course, and it basically it's not like a proper course, in my opinion. It's just like sort of like feminists. You would say men are all bad, they're all evil, this, that, the other. It doesn't really teach it a whole lot, but there are like lots of parent courses that you can actually do. Now there's a good woman on social media called Lorna Sutton. Lorna Sutton, her name is, and another one called Catherine Love. Now they've got a brilliant website. We can put a link in the description after this video, so anyone who needs any type of help in a family court situation, all core forms are there. Anything for adoption contact, these girls, I've dealt with everything. And her name is Lorna Sutton and Catherine Love. So they're really good people to contact in terms of like parental courses. But the main course provider that I'm aware of is Solihull parent courses.
That's been running a long time, that Solihull.
Yeah. And Sharon, if you can tell, the families any other course that you're aware of, that'd be brilliant too.
Yeah, well, I'm out of the loop now, Thomas, with courses and stuff. But I know the Solihull one is the one. I mean, you can tell by when something's been around for a long time that it's working, or it's established. But I think every council wants to reinvent the wheel, bringing in different parenting courses and things. But just stick to the basics. Stick to something that's been there a long time, really.
But isn't it terrible though, the way parenting, how to teach a parent the basics? Children don't come with a manual, do they? A baby does not come with a manual with contents page, index page. Here's what you do when the baby cries. Here's what you do, when the baby throws a tantrum or the child throws a tantrum. No, you don't get any of that. So nowadays it's all efficient, like this McDonaldization that I was talking about earlier, like the sort of the McDrive-through. You're doing bloody parent courses online. It's absolutely scandalous. Yeah. But it does work.
I used to get a book that was really interesting and then type up, spend in the summer when the schools were shut, it was a lot quieter. So I would type up information sheets for parents, just bullet points out of certain books that they're not going to have time to read, but you can bullet point certain things, advice sheets, to deal with tantrums or to deal with bedtimes or to deal. There's lots of I used to have little handouts like that, but talking them through it and then leave them the bullet points so that they kind of have a reference. But you can't, like I say, you've got to look at the family dynamics and how the family's set up and the support that family's got. And there's no one size fits all, is there? It's finding what suits you, really.
Yeah, there are different type of families. There's some, some of them have got like low IQs, which basically means is that their brain doesn't work as fast as everybody else's. They mightn't react as quick in a situation. That doesn't mean they're dangerous. It just means that they need to be taught a different way, like different horse for courses. I've butchered that saying, I don't know, but you know what I mean by it. The different ways and different means for different parents, and that's there are ways for them to keep the children, but they need to be taught, and if no one teaches them, how are they going to know?
Well, I just think until they change the education system, we're going to have this fight in our hands, because they've cut out all the lessons that with practical skills that kind of prepare you as you get older, for basic living, if you like. But they don't include any subjects that I used to say, shouldn't we be teaching teenagers, boys and girls, child psychology or something like that, so that at least they have to be able to understand themselves a little bit better, and for another to kind of prepare them to what to expect when they become parents in the future, which is what most of them do. Well, I don't know now though, because in 2015 they really pushed that the transgender agenda, and so I was
It's
sent
very
on a
dark,
course.
isn't it? So dark.
Oh, I was sent on a course a weekend in London to go on a training weekend, a seminar thing about transgender, which at that point it was like, well, fair enough, people do feel like they're in the wrong body, but when you look at the depth of their intentions behind it, I mean, when they, fair enough, if they said this 7-year-old after the summer holiday they allowed him to come back to school wearing a dress rather than the boys' uniform, he could wear a dress, and everyone accepted him because that's what he wore when he was at home. But it's gone beyond that. It's like it's almost like, well, you can't just say, well, it's okay if you're transgender now, because when they're pushing it's got a dangerous meaning to it, in that sense that they're confusing children. But I think that's that part of that eugenics thing about, not having children in the future, these children, they start taking hormone blockers and things like that. They're pushing for kids to take hormone blockers and things.
These globalists want to destroy the family. That is the nuts and bolts of it. And they'll do it in any way they can. They will say, you know what, you don't need to have a long-term commitment. Go into a casual relationship. You don't need to be heterosexual. Be gay, be free. Look, I'm not against people who are gay. We are what we are. Yeah. I'm talking about an agenda here. I'm talking about an agenda to destroy the family. That's what I'm talking about. And that's entirely different. Yeah.
It's absolutely an agenda to destroy the family. I mean, all this vaccine talk and things like that. I mean, when I was looking into Monsanto and everything, they were talking about what the sort of things they put into the water, into the food, which can cause infertility lower the sperm count in boys, or cause infertility in girls, and that's through the food and the water chain. And then there's an assault on the children from so many different sides. It's like almost making sure that these people won't be able to reproduce in the future. And like you say, in the north, there's an assault on. There's more applications going into court for taking children. And I was talking to one of the women that started a group in Newcastle. She was a volunteer at Barnardo's, and so she was at a big meeting where they were talking. There was social workers and like multi-agency team meetings where they can all get to know each other and all be on the same side when they get to these meetings and things. They have these multi-agency training days so they can all rub shoulders, and then they're all on each other's side when it comes against the parent in most cases. But and I've took myself off task there because I've forgot what the point I was going to make. I was going to make a point there, but I've lost my thread.
Can I interrupt while you're thinking about what you wanted to say? Before you were talking about, children being removed. Now, what I found out, and I only learned this quite recently, because I was saying before that you don't get a chance to speak to the judge, when you get to the interim care order stage. And just to recap, that basically means is where a social worker could actually, I don't think explain that. I might have explained it in the previous video we did a long time ago. You can actually go to court straight away to get an interim care order straight away. So you get like a section 20, which basically means is you volunteer to let your child go into care, or there could be like a police protection order, which lasts, I think, 72 hours, or there can be an emergency protection order, which lasts for 7 days. But after any of those 3 or 4, they get what we call an interim care order. Now, this is the point where a parent could speak to a judge. So if she knows or he knows that that child is going to be going into care temporarily at the least, consider sacking your solicitor and speaking yourself, and it does work because I helped the parent. And now this child who they're going to take off this mum, which they're probably looking at adoption, the narrative has changed. They're praising this woman now. Oh, she's brilliant. Oh, she's fabulous. That's it.
I'll tell you what I was going to say. She was at this meeting and they were discussing how to break the cycle of kids having kids in care, having kids that end up in care, to break that cycle so that these kids, you know, these parents didn't end up putting the kids in care, they'll remove them at birth. They won't work with them so that they're better parents and so they don't end up in care. They'll remove them at birth. And this is what they were talking about around this. So she left, she gave up, she walked out at that point because this woman has had children, her first child removed because of, they didn't help her. She was a teenager. She ended up getting put in prison and everything so they could take a child. But,
yeah,
and they've tried to take everyone since. But yeah, she walked out at that point because that's what they were discussing, how they would take these children at birth, and the likes of Bernardo's and everything, working in colluding with them in order to do that.
So the NSPCC is the only organisation that I'm aware of. No, this is a fact. Who can actually, it's got the power to get a court order in its own name.
Right.
All this Dr. Bernardo's and the NSPCC, they have people who work for those companies and they need jobs. It's as simple as, if they don't have money coming in, they don't have jobs.
Yeah.
You know, so it is real, you know, what you're saying. I mean, there's a point I wanted to make before as well, but I've also lost train of thought. Go on, continue. Sorry.
No, I'm glad that more people are talking about it now. And my hope, I guess, is that the more we talk about it, the more under the light it becomes, the more into the dark they have to go. So they have to back off. I know that Jerry Hanna was saying that he's got children back in the home within a matter of hours because they've said the right thing to the right people. You know, make the right sort of noises and but you have to know what you're saying and you have to know what you're doing, don't you? And that's where you come in, I guess.
See, there are people who do help, but there are also people who exploit.
Yeah.
I've got to say this because you mentioned me and I help, and that's fair enough. But there are people who surface on Facebook who don't really have, shall we say, entirely a moral agenda. They're not entirely good people, right? There are Mackenzie friends out there because we've got to have some balance here. Come on, let's be realistic. Who are not exactly, I don't know who they are, but I know there are some sexual favors for help. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah. Some may say, I can help you for nothing. Come on. How can you help a parent for nothing? Do you have a mortgage? Do you pay your landlord? Do you have a car? Do you like blow bubbles into that to make that car go? No, you don't. Things cost money. When someone says to you, I can help you for nothing, you think to yourself, fine. Online, great, we'll do that. Meet me in person, get in my car, sleep on my sofa. No. You make sure you have someone at all times with you. If you're a young woman and you're a vulnerable woman in particular, you make sure you never put yourself in a dangerous situation whereby you are with this Mackenzie friend, this helper. There are good Mackenzie friends. You know, there are good people. Julie Haynes, you know, she's one. You know, that there are some good male ones. But as I say, I've got to actually put things into perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I only really send people to Jerry or yourself because Jerry's got part of Parenting Together charity, and his charity gets funded for working with parents with learning disabilities. If I point anybody in his direction, he does ask for a small donation because obviously he's a charity and everything, but he only gets the funding for.
Can you elaborate on the small donation?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate on this small donation?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't go into details. I just leave it. I don't get involved in all of that.
I do. And the parents come back and they tell me.
All right.
Now, Jerry Hanna, I don't really know what he does. I'm being honest with you. I really don't know what he does. I know what I do because I know the type of statements I have to put. They're professional. They're researched. They don't waffle on. They get to the point. Some parents, on balance, have told me that certain Mackenzie friends or certain helpers, let me just say, because I don't want to be fucking sued for defamation here, he's not particularly cheap.
Right. Oh, well, I don't know anything about, like I say, I don't go into that. I've chatted with him a couple of times, and I just think if you can help some, like me, I
let me say this. I've had to make a fucking template for defamation in case someone tries to sue a parent. It's that bad.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's that bad. I had to think, okay, this has happened with this Mackenzie friend. This has happened with this situation. This parent's told me the situation. They're threatened to take her to court to sue her. What can I do? I had to sit there and think of a defense for that parent. It's that bad.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not mentioning that Mackenzie friend's name, but there are like one or few. It's not Jerry, by the way, but
no,
there are 1 or 2, 3. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, this Facebook, there must be 20,000 people desperate looking for help.
Yeah.
I look at like an analogy. Actually, you've got like a very small island, and you've got shark-infested seas surrounding that island. And when the tide comes in, the sharks come in to that island. That, for me, is what Facebook is like.
Yeah. That's why I've personally never, I mean, for everything I've been through since I got sacked and the court cases and everything else, and I'm thankful every day for the friends and family that I've got. I do feel protected by my angels. I've never asked for anything, and I see other people, you know, go fund me this, go fund me that, PayPal me this, and I just think there's a certain person on Facebook who, when you look at her profile, she's got a number of profiles, and she's claiming to be this, that, and the other that you know she's not, and she must live on other people's money, and I just think how. She's barefaced, like she's that bad. I've watched early days. I watched some of her streams, and I think somebody had challenged her on something, so she got a backup, and she said things that I think prove that she tells lies, really, about her own children, really. And because I notice things like that, I'm very I've got like a built-in lie detector. You know, when you don't trust somebody, and so people trip themselves up, especially when they're cornered. And I don't really get involved in warning people off about other people, but for this person, I have done, because I just think you're dealing with vulnerable people. You're claiming to be doing this, that, and the other that you're not doing. And it's not just because I go, oh, well, I've never asked for money. I don't want people thinking that if I was going to travel somewhere to see somebody to help them out, right, I would probably say, if my tank was empty, I'd probably say, look, I haven't got the money to fill my tank, because that would be the truth. But I've not had to do that, really. But I do see these people, and I just think you're just the lowest of the low, because all the type of people that you're hooking in to give you money think that you're something that you're not, and they're giving you money for that reason. And then you see things going on, and you know where that money's going, if you like. And so, yeah, people like that are damaging for the cause, really. They are, and there's so many of them out there. They want fame, or they want fortune, or, you know, they think, oh, I want a piece of that. I mean, the only reason I'm on here, because public speaking is not really a favourite thing for me, but you're
doing amazing. You're absolutely amazing, Gary.
It's important, though, to get the truth out there, isn't it? When you've seen that corruption firsthand, when you've seen how all of these authorities work, and even when I went to court, right, for that, when I reported grooming from when I was a child from a family member, and it was like a 40-year-old case, and I hadn't intended it to go to court, but the corruption in that court, as a victim, I didn't feel, I've never put myself in the victim role, but they sat me in a room next to the courtroom. They waited till his barrister and solicitor come out of the courtroom, and then they moved me around the table facing the window, and then he came and stood outside the window, just standing there, and she was just making out she moved me, because she said, oh, I need to shut these blinds, And so I had to move around the other side of the table, and she was messing about with these blinds that didn't close, obviously. And I think that was just complete intimidation. She was trying to intimidate me before I went into court. And I said to the police that you know, how come the CPS is taking this to court? Because there's no evidence. It's my word against his. There's no living witnesses. It won't even stand up in court. Why are the CPS jury and everything, right? Complete waste of taxpayers' money. Why are they doing that? And she said, apparently they've got all this funding now for historical child abuse cases. And I thought, well, Middlesbrough, for God's sake, there must be a lot more cases worth that money than this. This isn't even going to get, anywhere. And I knew that before I went in there, but I just went along because the CPS had set it all up. But yeah, that's what they did to me in the court. And I'm sure it was to try and intimidate me. But I mean, I turned up to give me evidence, and then I didn't bother the rest of the week. I got the verdict told to me over the phone at the end of the week, which I knew what it was going to be. And I wasn't interested. It was just a farce, basically. But that's how come I got involved with Justice for Chelsea. I went to the demo for Justice for Chelsea because the CPS refused to take her case to court, and she had cigarette burns and all sorts of things on her when she'd been attacked. So that was how I got involved in all of this, really. But that was the offset of me kind of losing my job as well. It all snowballed. It was like a strange series of events that's got me to here, really, getting arrested and all of that sort of business. Yeah. But it's just highlighted to me in little pieces how corrupt everything is, because once you have a little bit of corruption in your own life, you can see it everywhere else, can't you?
Yeah. See, the way you got into this work, what you're doing, which is amazing, as I say, you are really, really good. You are really good at interviewing. Your brain is far better than what you think it is, for a start. That's my analysis. But for me, I got into it by accident. I was sort of just done my law degree, just poodling about on Facebook, because I knew that's where they have like a legal forum and stuff. And I just sort of got involved that way. But I was only seeing it in black and white. I didn't live that reality. I've never been into family court in my life. None of my family have, So I was coming from an entirely different angle. So I've got nothing really to gain by just because I couldn't really relate to it. For me, I would call it abstract. It was just what people were telling me. And I'm thinking, come on, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. And when you start seeing so many people and they're saying the same thing and they're validating what they're saying, you're thinking, what are the odds that's a coincidence? And then I started to look. Some of them are getting brave at the time. Some of them are showing me, court stuff. But many are frightened too. Even to this day, many are frightened too. Let me tell you, you are allowed to get help. You are allowed to get help. If you don't confide in someone to help you, they're going to steal your child. It's that simple. All you have is an internet phone. They have these laser printed scanners. They have, laser scanners, laser printers. That is their baby making machine for their baby farm, for their children farm. You need to confide in people, to trust people, but do it. Look after yourself. Be safe to do it. But that's how I got involved into it. And then I started seeing a court order, and I'm thinking, but where was the evidence for that? Oh, it's what the social worker put in writing. And that is a key point. The social workers put stuff in writing and they never get challenged on it. And because the parent
I complained about one of the social workers lying. She'd lied to 3 different people about the same period of time of where she was, when she should have really been in court with this young girl that I were working with. And so I got back to I worked at the SEN school then. So I got back from the court and I saw the secretary and the head teacher, and they both had different versions of where this social worker was supposed to have been or was at the time. But I saw her in the car park. She told me she had to stay at home and wait for her daughter's bed to be delivered, right? She told her office that she was in the court. She told the school that she was in a meeting, and she had to tell me the truth because I went to court with this girl, And so I sent an email to her manager saying about her telling lies, and I said it's not good that a social worker. And I also knew of another family that she worked with that she'd lied, or she'd gone to the wrong house. So this woman was upset because the neighbours would then know that the social worker were knocking on the door. This woman was looking after her niece. It wasn't her children, but and then she'd lied about a few other things. And so I reported her, and I got the head teacher coming in to me saying, oh, I've just had a phone call from the manager. She's not happy about you calling one of her social workers a liar. And I said, well, she is a liar. She said, I know she is. And she'd actually seen my email before I sent it, fortunately. So I says to her, she said, don't worry about it. She says, I told the manager, I saw that email before she sent it. She says, but maybe you could have worded it a little bit differently. And I went, well, you know me, a spade's a spade. I'm not dressing anything up. But yeah, they didn't want to take her to task for being a liar. She still works, but they want to take me to task for calling her a liar. And I just thought, how dangerous is that when you've got, I mean, she wanted me to do a report for her, right? And she turned up, I thought, to give me the information. She starts writing the email address down for me to find this report with a crayon. I couldn't, honestly, you couldn't write it. I was just like, this is what these families have got to deal with. It's disgusting, really. And they push these kids from school into these courses. Go do a health and safety, health and social care course, health and social care. If your kids not, if they're not going in the normal classes, send them off on a health and social care course. So then they're churning out these social workers that have got their own issues to deal with because they've come out of school with their own issues. You know, it's like, but I do believe that they employ them on the level of narcissism that they have. You know.
Well, you know what? There's real things called personality, and you do get, like, I want to call the word evil because I think it's a fair word to use. They are pure evil. They literally are pure evil. Even about the most vulnerable young mums, they're like sharks. They just literally teeth. They just like tear them apart.
Yeah,
and they've got no remorse. They've got no remorse. Is the sad thing about it. I think Casey,
and in the office, they talk about the parents like the scum. It's like them against us. It's that attitude of we're better than you. We haven't had children yet, and you know we're going to be perfect. But for now, we're going to tell you that you're shit, and we're going to treat you like you're shit, and we're going to take your charge off you if we get the chance, because that's what basically it stands for. But I've just been given the heads up that we're nearly at 2 hours, Thomas. So
yeah, that's what I was trying to interrupt for. I'm aware. But if we do a part 2, let's sort of not focus so much now on the conspiracy stuff. No. Let it just be about this damaging foster care, you know, special guardianship and adoption train.
Yeah.
I think we really need to focus on that. But
and you can talk a bit about that paper you sent me as well, that you know what you wrote.
Oh, the global takeover?
Yeah.
Or something else?
No, what did you send me the other day? It was about how you know, I mean, you spoke to me before about it, hadn't you, about the theories. Was it you that sent me? Yeah, it must have been.
I think that might have been a global takeover, but that's more like the conspiracy side. I want to try to aim towards now with the family court situation, the real situation, you know, not all this COVID-19 stuff. Yeah, all right, we know what's going on, it's real, but there are real families, you know, who have real problems in the family court, and we want to focus on that.
I think we need to advertise it a little bit as well, Thomas, get those people tuning in at the right time as well, because I know it was a bit short notice and we only put out the thing for it. I know Katie's show's on every Sunday and everything, and like I say, she's not going to be in the picture for a few weeks, but I'd like to get the thumbnail out so that people are aware that you're going to be on and what it's going to be about, and so they can tune in for that and maybe ask questions while we're on.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be good, because it was all, as you say, pretty much short notice. I'm not really into these things, you know, these live shows. You know, I'm not the type of person to start my own YouTube channel. I don't want the drama. I'm not saying your show is about drama. It's important that you do it, but I'm saying I don't call it the Thomas Show. You know, it's not about me. I'm trying to help families. That's the way I'm looking at it, and that's me personally. You guys are doing an amazing job, and you know I think that. But I'm just talking about me, you know. So I'm not the type of person to want to be on all the time. I know it's important at the same time.
It is. It is. And like you say, you don't have to have your picture. You don't have to be live if you don't like. We'll get you a picture, Thomas. We'll get you a picture up.
Yeah, exactly.
Choose a picture, and then we'll put a picture up.
Yeah,
we've had a lot of good comments and a lot of love in those comments as well. Thank you, everybody, with the happy Easters and the lots of love sharing and stuff. So yeah, that's really good. But yeah, I'd like to put it out there, a little bit of notice, so that people know that you're going to be on, and we can, like you say, we can maybe get them to send some questions in, or focus it more on what they need to know in the court, because there's too many parents going through it.
Exactly.
And not enough education about it, really. So yeah, it's good.
Well, thank you anyway for inviting me onto your show, and I did enjoy it.
You're more than welcome anytime, and we'll sort out another date, Thomas. I don't know when you're free, but
sort something out.
Yeah, just let me know. Let me know when you're going to be free. Brilliant.
Thanks so much. Now.
Thank you ever so much. We'll go to roll. I don't know if you want to stay on, Thomas, and have a quick chat with Katie behind scenes when we finish.
No, I mean, that's fine. I can just maybe chat in PM or whatever. That'll be fine.
All right, okay then. Well, it was lovely talking to you.
And you too.
We'll speak soon.
Thank you.